Hello and welcome back to the Higher Paradigm YouTube channel and podcast. I am your host, Laura. Today we are doing an audio, not a video. So if you're watching on YouTube, yes, this is what it's supposed to look like. And I felt like doing this because I haven't showered in a couple days and I just don't feel like it and I don't feel like being on camera. So there we go. But I do have a lot that I want to talk about in regards to the topic that we are going to dive into today. And before I get into this topic, I just want to say that if you are here, and watching this, you are here for a reason. And trust that whatever information you receive in this episode, there is something within it that is meant for you, because this particular topic is very personal and we all have our own experiences with this particular topic. So maybe this is an area of healing work that you are already diving into. Maybe it's an area of healing work that you are now being called to dive into. I just believe that if you're here listening to any of the episodes, of course, but if you are listening to this one, then something is here for you. Okay. And I want to share what I want to share because of my own journey, what I know to be true, what is channeled through me. And the topic is comparisons, but also rejection, specifically self-rejection. And the reason I want to share all of this is because I have been on a 1.5-month journey, deep diving into the trenches of a core wound of self-rejection. And I recognize so clearly so many aspects of this wound, but also how literally nearly every other wound leads back to rejection of the self. And we take on this self-rejection as a way to protect ourselves, a way to stay safe. Certain experiences, our parents or other people, whether they be friends or other family members or teachers or counselors, whatever it is, we have been made to believe that from these external places, people, that there are parts of us that are not lovable, that are not good enough, that are not worthy, that are not valuable. And so in order to preserve ourselves, we reject those parts of ourselves that were made to believe they're not lovable in order to survive. So it's just interesting. So much of what has been coming up around this for me, and I know that I am not alone. I know that's everyone to some degree has experienced or does currently still replay stories that live in their body around self-rejection. Especially if you are a woman who is, or a man, if you are a woman who is highly, or a man, if you are a person who is highly sensitive, then in my experience, you're going to absorb what you observe and experience a little bit differently than those that are not highly sensitive. So as a highly sensitive, you do take on the energies of others. And of course, we could dive into like human design and astrology and all this as far as your makeup, your own unique blueprint and everything like that. But we know if we are highly sensitive or not, if you are prone to taking on the energies in the room, if you can feel a shift when you're around other people, if that is you, when we were in ages where we were impressionable or influenced more easily, then the energies that we're taking on through the words that other people are saying to us, we absorb as truth about who we are. And it can take on a whole life of its own. It can show up then as an adult, as these are the stories that are true about us, because these energies imprint into our cells, into our body, into our nervous system, and they create neural pathways of stories about who we are and our place in this world that we perceive to be true. So even as adults who are aware of who they are and their place in this world on a conscious level, but yet you are still navigating self-doubt, fear of rejection. Well, not necessarily fear of rejection, because I feel like the core is sometimes difficult to discern unless you're diving deep into the trenches of the healing work. And we might even know on the surface that we are in fear of rejection, but until we really get into the body and work with the energy of it and the stories attached to it, then on the surface, it's just, well, yeah, I'm not rejected anymore. But if it lives in your body, then your body believes that you are being rejected, or it is in fear of rejection. It knows rejection hurts. It's painful. It's scary to believe that you're not loved or not lovable or not good enough or not valuable enough. Those are deep, deep stories that we need to work through. So on the surface, as an adult person, we know it doesn't matter what other people think, right? But do we actually know that in our bodies, right? What I've come to discover is that our ego is clever AF, and it will inadvertently steer you into self-rejection. And I want to share my stories about this because it's literally so crazy how this wound can pop up and masquerade as something else other than what it is in order to keep us safe. It's all in an effort to keep us safe. So in one hand, you could say, what the, what the hell? Oh my God, stop, right? Like just freaking stop. But in the other hand, when we recognize that this is happening for us, it's happening for us because our body is still in self-protection in some way, shape, or form. So thank you for protecting me and for keeping me safe all of these years, all of this time. But here I am. Let's shed some truth on it. When we meet it with love instead of, stop, just effing stop, that type of stuff, then we can really actually do a greater amount of work and have a greater amount of evolution and alchemize that pain into truth, into love, into self-love. So, yeah, I have been on my journey with rejection for 5 years. I have done so much healing work in the last 5 years. I've gone deep, 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 because this is the path that God has put me on. And God has called me to do deep, deep inner work so that I can show up in the world embodied in who I am, in my truth, feel safe to speak my truth, but operate from love and not from pain, and really be an embodiment of the work that I do so that I can show up as a healer, as a guide, as a coach for others on their journeys from this embodied place and really understanding the deep trenches of this journey, but also understand how to guide and support others with their own unique journeys. There's no one size fits all. There are definitely modalities and tools that I use in general, but when it comes to working in the one-on-one space with women who are navigating these trenches, it is very unique to them. We all have different stories, different experiences in our childhoods, in our lives, different trauma, different pain, different pleasure, just different stories. So it is important. And in order for me to be this embodiment of the work, I had to spend the last 5 years diving really freaking deep and being fully devoted to my healing journey, which I have been with a lot of it of resistance. Because yeah, when you're here to make an impact in this world, you're like, I just want to make the impact. But every time I would speak that to God, I'd say, I'm ready now. God would say, well, are you? And here's another layer for you. So I went deep. And over this last month and a half, it is my time to rise up into this woman who speaks truth and feels unwavering in who she is and is able to guide and support others. And obviously, I have been creating this YouTube channel and podcast, which is 5 years in the making. As I shared in my very first episode, which you can go back and watch, this was something I had to work my way through my journey of healing to get to this point where I have the confidence and the voice from this place of love and truth within myself that I'm able to be here now and do this. So, of course, as I'm navigating these waters of building this YouTube channel and podcast, I was invited to go really freaking deep into this, into some heavy, heavy wounding. And it was all focused on, where do I fit in? Do I fit in anywhere in this world? And self-rejection. And of course, I was guided through experiences that I was consciously aware of, the wounding that imprinted because of those experiences. But once I actually allowed myself to be with what I did not allow myself to feel within those experiences, there was a lot of grief. And so I had to go through different layers, deep layers of grief around part of my story, part of my past and my history. Once I got through that, I was brought even deeper into this wound of rejection. I was shown how it started in gestation and then in infancy. My needs weren't being met. I wasn't responded to when I would cry, things like that. What was coming up for me was around feeling and fearing rejection was a lot of fear in my gut. And what that invited me to get curious about the fear, what was inside of this fear and what is the story and this process that I take myself through. It brought me to when I was in my crib crying, wanting to be held, wanting something, and nobody coming. And the fear is from feeling or worried that I'm not going to survive, that I'm alone in some way at that level of development, of course. When you're an infant, you are living in survival because you're counting on your mother and father or your caretaker to fulfill your needs. So if your needs aren't being met as an infant, I can only imagine. Obviously, I don't consciously remember being an infant. I'm not that good. To get to that layer was really, really wild. Bringing comparisons into this, one of my first healers, she shares that when we are in comparisonitis or the comparison trap, however you want to put it, we see something in her that is just not accessible to us, that we can't give ourselves permission to have or to be or to do. While that is true, we need to accept ourselves. We need to give ourselves permission to be at this level that another woman might be at. As mothers, we always want to be better. But for whatever reason, we spin this story within ourselves that we aren't good enough. We aren't doing enough. Look at what this mother is doing on Instagram. Here's a good example. This is one that works for me too. She homeschools her children because she has the capacity to do it. Well, I must be just a terrible mother because I don't have the capacity to homeschool my kids. So that makes me a shitty mom. That's like a story that I've definitely told myself. It's not about giving yourself permission to be a homeschooling mom. It's about giving yourself permission to accept that you don't have the capacity to do homeschooling and to be okay with that and to know that your way is good for you and your family. It works for you and your kids. It is better for you and your kids, right? So that's what permission is in that example. The example that she was giving was permission to be at the level that the woman that you think is better than you is at. So you're an entrepreneur, but you're not making tons of money in your business, or you're not making any money, but you're watching these entrepreneurs who are making a lot of money, or they're saying they are. We don't even know their real stories, but they're saying they are, and they're living this lavish life. And to you, will I ever match up? How could I ever do that? But when we give ourselves permission to say that I am able to do this because this is not only what I desire, but it's what I deserve. And then going inward and saying, okay, when I tell myself I deserve this too, and I'm going to take the action steps to have it, what is felt in your body? What are the stories that come up? What is the work that needs to be done around this? Because you can give yourself permission consciously all you want, but if you don't get into the layers of self-rejection that will hijack your ability to give yourself true permission and actually go for it and be willing to take the action steps, but also be willing to have the patience to access it. That is a part of it too. We become very impatient with the process of letting things grow and blossom. And when we become impatient, especially with the wound of self-rejection, what we're saying to ourselves is that it's not happening, so obviously I'm not good enough, or this just can't happen for me. This stuff doesn't happen for me. So you're rejecting your ability to get to that place where it is going to happen through having the patience, but also recognizing that permission is not just, okay, I'm giving myself permission to take action. But if it doesn't work out in 2 weeks or a month or 2 months or a year, then obviously nobody wants me. Nobody cares what I have to say. Nobody wants to work with me. Nobody sees me. Nobody's ever going to see me. This isn't working. And then you go down a black hole spiral of self-rejection. So I give myself permission to lean into and take action towards living this life, being this entrepreneur, and doing all these things. How does your body respond to that? Because if your words don't match your energy, that's a big problem. And that's what creates blocks. In my experience, this is what I know to be true. There's been plenty of times where I've said the words, but I can feel resistance. I can feel a contraction in my body, and I just choose to ignore it because, well, I'm saying it and I'm just going to keep saying it, and then it'll be true and it'll come. But then what happens is I end up down the self-doubt spiral. The spiral of, oh my God, nobody wants me, nobody cares, nobody all this stuff. We have to be willing. We really do. We have to be willing to go into these layers of self-rejection. If you're doubting yourself, what's underneath the doubt? Why are you doubting yourself? It's probably got to do with, I'm not good enough, or I didn't learn enough, or this stuff doesn't happen for me. That was a big story for me too. Good things just don't last, or they don't happen. So rejecting your ability to build a life that is good. And even that means too, not rejecting when there are challenges. So what I mean by that is when you have challenges, not saying, well, see, my life is shit. Rejecting that the challenge is actually part of the good. It's part of the journey. It teaches you so much. And when we use challenges or really hard times, even when we're going into trenches of wounding, recognizing that this is all for our highest and best, and that there's so much wisdom, knowledge, and experience that you will gain from these challenges or when things aren't quote unquote working. Instead, knowing that on the other side of this is just so much more of you and you rising up into your truest self. If you're willing to be within that trench or within that challenge and just be with what is coming up for you and meet those challenges with love and be willing to see the lessons instead of playing the victim or the martyr in it. It really is a choice. There have been a lot of times for me where I at first was like, ugh, of course this shit happens to me and bad things happen to me. And why can't I just have good things? And I say, if that's your initial response, that's cool. Recognize it, be with it, let it move through you. Say all the bullshit things that aren't true and let it move so that you can get to, actually, what is true is love. What is true is a lesson. What is true is wisdom. We've all been through things, right? We all have pain. We all have stories of trials and tribulations and trauma and all the things. But what I've come to realize is that all roads lead back to rejection. If we felt abandoned, we are feeling like we're not lovable. So that equals rejection. Neglect, same thing. We're not lovable. We're not good enough. We're not worthy. Rejection. If these are the stories we have taken on, that everybody abandons us and that everybody neglects us, then we are also abandoning and neglecting ourselves, which is rejection. And we abandon and neglect ourselves through continuing to perpetuate the patterns within relationships that mimic the relationships that created the wound in the first place. So unless we go in again to our deeper layers of healing and recognize that we are worthy of having the love and the relationships and the experiences in our lives that we desire, then we will continue to perpetuate these patterns that keep us in our comfort zone, that keep us in survival mode. Other patterns that were coming up for me, if you resonate with being gaslit and manipulated a lot of your childhood into thinking that what you know to be true isn't true. As an adult, you don't trust your own truth. You don't trust what you're picking up on from other people. You don't trust your intuition. Therefore, you're rejecting yourself. Betrayal. If you have been betrayed in your life and it made a significant impact, then there are ways that we betray ourselves. It can show up as we say we're going to make a commitment to ourselves in some way, but then we end up not fulfilling that commitment to ourselves. So we do some self-betrayal, which is self-rejection. Having parents who give you conditional love, if you do X, Y, and Z, then love will be taken away. But if you do A, B, C, then you'll get love. So if you do good, you'll get love. If you do bad, black and white, you won't get love. So then as an adult woman who has a healthy marriage and children, my husband has given me so much unconditional love. And yet there are ways that I internally was rejecting that love because it didn't make sense to me. I didn't know what to do with it. My husband has supported me through when I was in the depths of addiction. He cherishes our marriage. And even though it was really hard and he didn't like me at the time, he still rose up and stuck around and wanted to see this through. And the way that I rejected that was shaming myself and feeling, even to this day, which was coming up this last month and a half. And mind you, I've been sober for the last 5 years. So this is definitely not still going on. We are in a healthy dynamic. It's amazing. And I've been learning to accept more of this healthy dynamic into my life. in just the last 5 years. But the way that it was cropping up was through I reject myself because I don't feel worthy of him, because I don't deserve unconditional love. I don't deserve to be forgiven. I don't deserve any of these things. So I was inadvertently rejecting his love through the way I was perceiving, or the way I was fearing that he would leave me or that he would go astray. It's really strange. I know. Let me explain, because this is crazy and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. Maybe. I hope not. But okay. So we went to the beach as a family last week, and I was on the beach. We had got a cabana and all of this. It was wonderful. And I was literally looking at every single woman's body and comparing myself. Well, I didn't know yet that I was comparing myself to any of them. I thought I was just judging their bodies, but I was feeling like really cruddy about it, really crappy about it. And I was looking at him also and wondering if he's looking at these women's bodies and thinking that they're better than my body. So I had to sit with myself on the beach and just ask myself, why do I keep judging these women? That's where it started. And what I came to realize is that I'm judging them against me. I'm saying to myself, how do I not match up? How am I not good enough? My butt isn't as great as hers, so I'm not good enough for my husband. It was about me and how I reject myself, but it also was how I was rejecting my husband's love inadvertently, because every woman, I was like, he's probably looking at them and thinking the same thing that I'm thinking, that, oh, they're better than Laura. And really, it was just me rejecting myself and projecting that onto my husband by saying he's probably thinking the same thing, because I reject myself within our marriage too. Still, this is deep, deep layers here. I'm talking, because on the surface, I accept him. I love him and I accept his love. But obviously, like deep inside, there's still rejecting of his love, because I'm thinking that I'm not good enough. So he must be looking at these women and thinking I'm not good enough too. It is so crazy. It was so crazy. And I just wanted to share that, because this is how clever our ego can be. I wasn't consciously aware that this was what was going on. And mind you, I had been thinking like, oh my gosh, why am I so insecure about my husband cheating? Why am I so worried about this? Is it because he really is doing something and my intuition is telling me something? Or is this epigenetics because there's infidelity in my family? No. Yes, those, or yes, the epigenetics. No, my husband has never, he's a faithful, loyal man, and he cherishes our marriage. There has never been a reason for me to doubt him. And yet I was doing all of this. So it was a me thing. It was me still feeling shame and unworthy of a man like him. And it does have a lot to do with my years of like just destroying our marriage and while I was struggling in addiction, but it also has a lot to do with a lot of rejection from childhood, feeling rejected by my parents or by other boyfriends, but also things that were instilled into me that our family just doesn't get good things. Our family is not good enough. Our family has a black cloud over its head. These were things that were said in childhood that we always struggled. All of these stories were still living inside of me and essentially steering the car, the path that I was going down in how I was perceiving my marriage with my husband, or his fidelity, or what he thinks of me when he isn't thinking these things of me at all. These are all ways that my self-rejection was being projected into our marriage. And then I was noticing then after how I was also doing this in all of my relationships, all my other relationships. Oh, well, I've never had friends like this before. I'm used to friendships that are dramatic and really codependent. There's an unhealthy attachment. There's a lot of jokes and judgment at other people's expense. And I have these adult relationships now with women that I love so much. They're mature, they're loving, they're supportive. There's a lot of reciprocity. And that was something that I never got for the majority of my life within female relationships. I always felt like I was working really hard to try to get my friends' love and to be accepted in. And it's just interesting to look back at the different paths you took or the different choices you make continue to perpetuate a narrative about what imprinted in you about who you are and what you're worthy of. I had endured a lot of rejection, so therefore I kept picking relationships that I felt rejected in and perpetuated that pattern and kept believing that I was a reject, that I was unlovable. And now I have this marriage. We've been married 12 years, almost 13 years, been together 15. And within the last 5 years, I've recognized how I was still trying to play out this pattern and projecting all of this wounding onto our marriage when that wasn't what I was receiving actually from him. So just to share this, if this resonates with you or if this is perking you up in some way, how does this mirror your experience within relationships? And what is actually true about your relationships versus what are the stories that you keep playing out? And it's making your relationships harder than they need to be when you could simply just be living in love and acceptance of self and the other and embracing everything that you have within that relationship. It is challenging to just go from chaos and drama, feeling like you're in survival mode or overthinking constantly to, oh, well, now I accept myself fully. I love who I am and I'm surrounded by love. That's not to say that there aren't people that are not exactly that, but what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the people that don't give you, quote unquote, what you need? Why are you looking to them to give you what you need? Right? So what is that mirroring back to you that you need to pay attention to within yourself? Because anything within any relationship outside of you, if your needs are not being met in some way, have a dialogue with that person. These are the needs that I have, and these are what are not being met. That's how we operate from our adult selves versus internalizing our needs not being met and thinking it means something about us and rejecting ourselves and rejecting our feelings and rejecting our needs. And instead saying, I accept that this is what I need in relationship. I accept myself and I know I'm worthy and deserving of having these needs met. And if they can't be met, then we're going to have to figure something out here, right? So that's a way that we can take back our power as women comparing to other women who we perceive as they have more success or they have more beauty or they have a better body or they have more money or they're a better mom or whatever it is. They speak better than I do, whatever it is. Where is the wound and what does it stem from with other females in the past? Okay. This is the question I want you to ask yourself. If you are in this comparison trap or you have comparisonitis, where in your past did you feel in female relationships that you were being rejected or that you were being compared to? And so you rejected parts of yourself. So I bring this back to teenage years for me as a female who had unhealthy female friendships. But I mean, teenage years is difficult anyway. So I'm sure we all had some degree of unhealthy female friendships, or a lot of us, I should say, not all of us. So my experience within female friendships as a teenager was oh, well, my jeans are better than yours, or I'm skinnier than you, or you're skinnier than me, or I have better this or that. And there was just a lot of judgment. And actually, this would go into adulthood too, before the last 5 years when I started to make significant changes in all of my relationships, including friendships. A lot of comparisons, a friend getting mad and holding a grudge against me because I was getting engaged before she did. In teenage years, if males seem to be quote unquote more attracted to you than they are your friends, then your friends judging you and critiquing you and trying to find all of the things that are wrong with you. And we take that on as there's something wrong with me because my friend said so. But what's really happening here? What's really happening here is that these friends are rejecting themselves. They're picking on you and critiquing you, and they're doing all these things because they don't think that they're good enough. Yet we are taking on self-rejection and feeling like we're being criticized and I need to hide or I need to shrink back because they're judging us and they're criticizing us. And so we take on rejection. But the reason that we're being criticized is because they reject themselves. They reject parts of themselves. So it's so interesting how this works. Like we take on these beliefs that we are being rejected, that we are rejected. But really it's coming from people who reject themselves. And this does go back to parents too. My mom was really uncomfortable with me as a whole. She didn't like it when I fully expressed myself. She was very jealous. And I took that all on. I absorbed that as there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't express myself. I shouldn't be who I am. It's embarrassing or it's too much or it's not good enough. There was a lot of body image stuff in my household growing up. So if you weren't a certain weight or your body didn't look a certain way, then you're not lovable was the message. But the whole thing about this is that it really wasn't even about me at all. It was about my mother's rejection for herself. It's just really interesting how this core wound plays out in our relationships and the beliefs and the stories that we've taken on within ourselves and all these projections that we have taken on. They're a mirror for these people who have projected onto us of the rejection and the stories that they hold within themselves about themselves. If we can teach our daughters, our children this now as grown women with awareness and doing the work, then we can save our children from taking on these wounds and this need to compare to others. We can do so much good for our next generation. And this is definitely something that I am doing with my children, even in situations where they're feeling bullied, helping them to understand that what the bully is saying and doing is not a reflection of you. It does not mean anything about you. And they're going through their own thing and they're projecting onto you, speaking at their level about this, obviously, depending on how old they are. But we can do so much good by letting our children know that anytime anyone is casting judgment upon them, that anyone is projecting in any type of way, or bullying, or saying something negative about them to make them feel bad about who they are, if we can just remind them that it isn't about them and remind them of their worth and remind them of their value and let them know that we know that they're worthy and valuable, even bringing in that God knows they're worthy and valuable, regardless of your size, regardless of the pimple on your nose, regardless of whatever, your skin peeling from your sunburn. God loves you regardless. You love them regardless. Speaking this way to our children, we are healing ourselves. we are healing those parts of ourselves that needed to hear what we can say to our kids. So through the words that we express, we are receiving and we are giving to ourselves that love that we so much needed and that truth that we so much needed. And that's another recognition. If this is what you know to be true about your children, that what other people say don't mean anything about them, it's a mirror for what the person projecting onto them is going through, then that is the truth about you too, as an adult woman. So the other piece of this, lastly, is embracing exactly where you are on your unique journey. And the need to compare yourself to others is an ego problem. It's not a soul problem. It's not a problem that God has placed upon us. It is one that put us in this survival mode and how we're going to survive this or how we're going to get through this. And that's not part of your divine nature. That's part of human nature, which is part of our soul's journey, of course. It's also a way to keep us stuck in our patterns that actually don't serve us and won't align us with who we're here to be and how we want to operate, what we want to achieve in this world, and what we're here to do in this world. So it's really important to remember that I am on my own unique path. I am not meant to operate like anybody else. My journey is not the same as anybody else's. And if I want to create this life for myself, or I want to be a better mom, or whatever it is, I can take the action steps towards doing those things and trust that God or the universe is always going to co-create with me and meet me halfway and give me exactly what I need when I need it. We so often think we should be 10 steps ahead of where we actually are. And if we could just embrace where we are and recognize the divine timing of it all and be in the experience of whatever it is that we are experiencing in any given moment, we can unblock ourselves. We can truly lean in and trust that it's all unfolding exactly as it's meant to be, and it's all going to happen. And trusting the visions that we have in our mind too. If we envision things for ourselves that, or even seeing other women and seeing what they have and being inspired. Oh, that's what I'm working towards too. Celebrating that woman and saying, that is amazing. I'm so happy for her. And yes, that is inspiring. Instead of feeling like, ah, well, that must be nice for her. And why can't I have that? Totally different energy. So that definitely was channeling through me. I don't even know what the heck I said. I was just speaking from my heart. We can heal self-rejection. We can accept ourselves fully and love exactly who we are. And when we do, then we can accept and receive more love, more abundance, more clients, more growth, more of the life that we are moving towards and desire to cultivate. That is how we do it, when we love and accept ourselves more fully. So be aware of the stories, not just the surface level. Go into the depths, be willing, and you will come out on top. You will be that woman who attracts all that you desire. And if this is work that you are ready and willing and curious to dive into, I would love to hold the space for you. So you can connect with me either in the comments below. I would always love to hear from those that are watching and listening and, have a conversation. You can also find me on social media on Instagram at Sacred Healing with _Laura. And you can hit me up in the DMs. You can also find me on Facebook at Sacred Healing with Laura, or my personal page, which is Laura Potozniak. And if you are interested in learning more about the work that I do, and if this is right for you, I will leave the link to my website in the show notes below. And of course, as always, hit the like button, hit the bell to stay up to date and get notified about when another episode drops on YouTube. You can follow me. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would love to have you back again and again, of course. And I would love to connect with you. And I am so happy to be here and sharing this information and speaking to you. And that is all. I will leave it there. So thank you again for being here. Much love and many blessings to you. And I'll talk to you again soon.